Okay, so I bought a new one of the stock carbs and it didn't really work. It's not really gonna work that well like with different RPM ranges anyway. It's meant to be, you know, at a stationary RPM. So I went and got a dirt bike style carburetor, which I'll show you that. It's actually pretty good quality for 15 bucks later in the video. And right now I got the first cut made for the manifold, which they want like 35 plus shipping plus time to ship for a manifold, you know, that's like 2 inches long, and it makes the carburetor tilt even more back, which is not the way I want to make it tilt. I want it to tilt forward. So I bought this. This was like 4 bucks, and this piece of steel was like, I think 9 bucks or something like that. But you can see it's about an 1/8 inch thick, a little bit thinner, and I'm just going to copy this down on there to make a flange, and then I'm going to bring it up and then bolt it down with the motor and then weld that onto there. You can see I kind of cut it at an angle to kind of get the air directed into the head at the right angle so it doesn't hit a wall. But anyway, I'm going to tack that on there at the right level so that way my carb is going to sit level. And then of course I've got to cut it, you know, wherever, because I'm not going to keep it that long. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make one of the flanges. Okay, so here's my flange so far, and the holes are pretty much perfect. I mean, they're not perfect, but they're pretty close to perfect. And I'm just getting ready to cut all that painted stuff off, and I'll get back. That's the flange pretty much finished. Still got a little bit of grinding to do. Okay, so here's the trike pretty much all the way finished, and I welded some extra support on here, and it really did help a lot. The only thing is this plate right here, there's not a lot of meat underneath here. It's kind of thin, so it flexes down a little bit. So when I get time to, or I find some metal for it, I'm gonna weld something across there, like a piece of angle, just small angle, or like miniature square tube stock, and stiffen that up. And then I welded those on right there to help a little bit, and when I cooled them I wrapped them in a towel, oily towel, and it kind of helped make them hard. And I readjusted the axle and stuff because it was kind of rubbing here and the alignment was off anyway, and I mean by like where you have to have the wheel angled to in order to go straight, and it was kind of off a little bit, but now the wheel has to be straight to go straight. And here's the carb. It's basically a Mikuni, except it's not. So yeah, it's really no different, but it works amazing. The throttle cable is actually off of my poor gas bike here, and that was working pretty good, so now that doesn't have a throttle. And I realigned the motor too, because during testing, I did test this already obviously, it kept wanting to pull itself into the axle, and I fixed that, and now the only rubbing that's actually going on is literally the motor bending the axle just enough to hit the motor, and that's why it's like barely like worn in. Otherwise it would be like, you know, really gouged, but it just polished it up a little bit. This is actually some vacuum line off of my truck. I don't know if that's gonna like deteriorate and clog it or whatever, but I also bent this choke because it was running into the valve cover, and I just put that on. That was probably a bad idea. But I'm going to not be plugging this into the air filter or the intake or anything. I'm just gonna leave it open because I mean, it's just a little bit of blow by, mainly when you're like not full throttle or you're slowing down. The thing vibrates a lot for some reason, and the pipe keeps coming off, but it's pretty reliable, and it does donuts in the rain on asphalt, not on that type of concrete. But yeah, it runs really good, and it is a slide carb, so it's got a slide that goes up and down. And the mixture adjustment, I mean, I've been playing with it, but I don't know what kind of mixture I'm really adjusting, so it's just kind of a question mark. And here's the intake that I made out of flat bar and a 90-degree band of conduit. It's hard to get the carb level, but that's pretty much it. And then this is kind of rigged, it's taped on there, but I'm gonna get a regular air filter for this carb eventually. And also my keyway fell out of the, or my key fell out of the brake, and it started spinning because it has so much power, you know. But no, it stayed there with the set screws. But I went ahead and replaced that anyway, and I changed the brake. I don't know if I've said this or went over this, but I changed that weird loop design to just pushing down on the actual lever there, and yeah, it only goes 33 miles an hour, and then it hits the rev limiter because apparently you're supposed to buy a $100 coil to get it to do $9 grand, which I think it would honestly explode. It's kind of creepy to have your motor right there going $9 grand. But yeah, I'm going to get a 48 tooth sprocket so that the gearing can be 4.8 to 1 because that's a 10 tooth clutch. And right now that's a 60 tooth sprocket, and that's good for drifting. And I'm probably not going to be able to drift with the new one, but at least I can drive it on the street and, you know, keep up with people because they're always trying to go so fast. But yeah, the blow-by has not gone away. It's still got a lot of smoke, but other than that, it's pretty much driftable, I guess.